This is the video tutorial for the ELF Christmas stocking from Happy Days. And this is how you make it. For our example, we've used plain red, red stripe, plain white, green stripe, and you'll also need a small amount of stuffing and a heat erasable pen. We'll start by making the tab. Place your tab fabric right sides down, so pretty side down, and fold in half and press. Open out and then take this side and place it on that first press line and press it once again, and then bring this side over and press, and finally fold it all over and add a few clips. I've added my clips and now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew along this side and along this side. I've sewn all along this edge and all along this edge, and I'm going to put this to one side for the moment. We are now working on the main outer stocking. Place your two pieces of fabric right sides together, so pretty side to pretty side. Line up all the sides and edges and add some clips. I've added my clips and now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine and carefully sew all the way around using 1/4 inch seam allowance. So starting at the top, go all the way around the heel, bottom of the foot, and all the way around. Now this is the tricky bit. You really have to go slowly around here, back on yourself, and all the way back to the top and stop. We will not be sewing at the top. I've sewn all the way around and I've also carefully snipped around these curves for a much nicer finish when we turn it. And I'm going to turn it now the right way out through the top. That's our main outer finished for the time being. We'll put that to one side while we work on the lining. Place your two lining fabrics right sides together, so pretty side to pretty side. Line up all the sides and edges and add some clips. I've added all my clips and I've also added my gap sign to remind me. And I'm now going to take it over to the sewing machine and using 1/4 inch seam allowance, starting at the top, slowly go all the way around. Again, it's quite wavy with all the bends in it, so take your time and stop there, and start again this side all the way to the top and stop. I've sewn all the way around and I've remembered to leave my gap for turning, and I've also carefully snipped around some of the curves. We're going to leave this the wrong way round at the moment and put it to one side. Using your template for the cuff, cut out 2 pieces. I've used 2 different fabrics, but you don't have to. You can do all the same if you wish. Using your sewing line template, place it directly on top and then carefully, using your heat erasable pen, draw the sewing lines. And that's my sewing lines drawn. Now place the fabric you've just drawn the lines on top of your other cuff fabric, so right sides to right sides, so you're still looking at the back, and then add some clips. I've added my clips. Now I'm also going to add a few pins for extra stability. I've added lots of pins. It's important to add the pins because we don't want it to move as we're sewing. I'm now going to take it over to the sewing machine, and using these lines as a guide, I'm going to sew directly on top of them. Up and down. And to the end. I've sewn over my sewing lines, and I've also cut out my triangles. Finally, I've snipped fairly close to my stitching for a much nicer finish when we turn it. And I've done that for all points. And now I'm going to turn it the right way out. I'm now going to be adding my tab that I made earlier. Take your tab and fold it in half. Then place it with the raw edge outside of your main cuff and add a pin. This is the side of the cuff in my final make that I'll be looking at, and I've placed my tab on that side. I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine. I'm just going to sew quite close to the edge there. You won't see these stitches in the final make. They're just holding stitches. I've tucked the tab into place, and now I'm going to fold in half. Line everything up again, and then add a few clips down this side. I've added my clips, and now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine, 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew all the way down. I've sewn all the way down, and I've also trimmed off the excess fabric, and now I'm going to turn it the right way around. Now place the cuff over the main outer that you made earlier. Ensure that the tab is at the back, and then line up the tops and add some clips. I've turned it round so you can see a bit clearer. I've added my clips all the way around, and now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to tack fairly close to the edge all the way around. These are just holding stitches just to keep everything in place. I've tacked all the way around, and my next job is to put some stuffing just into the bottom of the toe part. I've added my stuffing to the curve bit and to here. Next, fold your stocking up. Now I'm going to put this inside the lining and then match up the top edge. I've pushed everything inside. Don't worry that it looks a bit of a mess at the moment. All will be revealed in a moment. The important thing to do now is to make sure that your side tab is tucked in out of the way, and your top edges and your side seams all line up. And when you're happy with those, add a load of clips. I've added all my clips, And now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine, 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew all the way around. I've sewn all the way around, and now I'm going to pull everything through the gap I left. I've turned it the right way out through the gap in the lining. I'm going to now sew this gap closed, then tuck the lining inside the main stocking. I've sewn up the gap in the lining and I've pushed the lining inside and I've pressed it. And that's your Happy Days elf stocking all finished.